Hello everybody, Pretzel Road here, and welcome back to another Polytopia time-lapse analysis video. Today, we are going to be playing as the Imperius, in crazy mode, domination, 3 opponents, same as usual, nothing really new here, so far. We get the mighty leader, welcome to the world message, and I immediately begin trying to develop my capital. Now, here's a really important part of what I do. Firstly, you'll notice I did get very lucky with the fact that I had two ruins very, very close to my capital. So I will admit there was some luck there. But the other thing that I want to point out is that I do a lot of work to develop this city that I have before I do too much in the way of expansion. I do a little bit of expansion, but I don't actually even capture any cities, I don't think, until I get a giant from my capital. Yes. So I get the giant, and I still don't have any other cities, but I am ready to capture other cities, and what that means is that I'm able to really make sure that my capital is well defended before I begin going out to fight, and it also means that I'm gaining a lot of stars from which I can train units and research new techs, and basically do whatever I need to defeat any of the enemies that I move to attack. And that giant also proves very helpful for getting rid of the Oumaji and Bardur in the north for a little bit. And that allows me to continue expanding while the giant is able to deal with the Bardur, instead of me having to send out a bunch of troops to continuously keep that border safe. With the giant, I can basically maintain complete security of the borders without actually having to move any additional troops for a good long time. Now, the Xin-xi have arrived on boats at this point. They were never really a huge threat until the end of the game, so I did try to get rid of their boats just a little bit, but they weren't ever a huge problem for me. I was mostly dealing with the Bardur and Oumaji, and even late on in the game it was mostly just the Oumaji. So, the Bardur here are trying to conquer the Oumaji city up in the northeast, or northwest, and I do manage to eventually conquer that one, and the Bardur from there are largely receding. So, from now on, it's mostly really going to be a fight with the Oumaji. Now, I do a bit of exploring in the south of the map, and there will be a few cities that I uncover there, and those become very useful for developing and getting the points and stars that I needed to continue my way up to first place. Farming, as I begin to do a little bit of over here right now, is an incredibly good way of developing cities. It takes 1 more star per 2 population than it would for something like forestry, but it is more space dense, and that's because you are getting 2 population instead of 1 population per tile. So you do end up paying 5 stars per 2 population instead of 2 stars per 1 population, which works out to 4 per 2 population. But it's still a pretty good deal in terms of space efficiency. So it's definitely worth investing in farms if you haven't already. Now, at this point, I do begin uncovering the Oumaji lands, and I enjoy a little bit of the strength that the knight affords me. Knights are really good against horses, which seems like, at first, a very strange matchup, but in fact they actually work really well because normal horses, riders, have very little health, whereas the knight has quite a bit of health and is also able to attack riders. So they're actually very good against the Oumaji, who generally don't end up researching chivalry until a little bit later in the game. Unfortunately for me, though, it soon becomes apparent that the Oumaji have realized that I will just keep destroying their riders, and so they begin sending out tougher soldiers, which eventually cause me to struggle to move northwards. However, I do continue upgrading cities, which means more giants, which means that my fights are still not going to be all that bad, and arguably I could have probably even done significantly better in utilizing those giants, particularly in the late game where many of them have fairly low health, which is unfortunate because keeping a giant alive is incredibly useful because they have such high health and they have such a high attack. So they can basically be kept with what is, for all intents and purposes, infinite health, as long as you're careful with them. I was not so smart about that, unfortunately. On another note, you noticed that in the north, hopefully, you should have seen that I was struggling with the Oumaji still. They have begun using shields, and so even though I've uncovered a lot of their land, especially from earlier, I will from now on basically just be in a stalemate up there, because the Oumaji are going to continue throwing knights at us, which are just really hard to get rid of. Now, the Xin-xi will continue to attack every once in a while, but they are really incredibly easy to get rid of, so they just keep disappearing. I do have to invest in boats at this point, because the Oumaji have as well, and are now attempting to invade by water, which is unfortunate, because I could have, if I had a bit more foresight, tried to do that earlier and probably invaded their land significantly more easily, but I didn't have that much foresight, and so I now had to relegate ships to a support role, as I couldn't really practically push any more forward, and they have, by this point, gotten a couple of giants, which are really basically blocking me from doing anything. I guess it's too bad. Over with the Bardur, though, it's going much better, and because they haven't been able to fight back nearly as effectively, even though they also have shields, their small number of cities and lesser powerful battle strategy has made them an easier target. Meanwhile, in the south of the map, I conquer 2 more cities, which I promptly invest a lot in developing, to regain my first place spot, which I have now lost to the Oumaji, who are, for this entire game, really just the bane of my existence. However, fortunately, I do eventually regain that position. It looks like I did just a few seconds ago. And I also managed to conquer, or nearly conquer, one of the Bardur cities. I have not yet captured it, but I am now holding it under siege. So, that will end up going fairly well. As far as the Xin-xi are concerned, they will eventually take the city that they keep going after, but it's alright because by that point I'm far enough ahead and the Xin-xi are far enough behind that doesn't really affect my score, and maybe bumps them up just a little bit. I'm still fighting mostly with the Oumaji for first place, and so I just do everything I can to upgrade cities, so that they produce the points necessary to get me to as high of a level as possible. Now, I could have probably gone to the east if I really wanted to try to defeat the Xin-xi, but I never really felt like that was a risk worth taking, and I decided that I would stick with the mainland for the most part, and leave the Xin-xi to try to expand in their limited space, while I used my vast expanse of space near me to continue my expansion into the Oumaji and Bardur land. The Bardur city, the last one that they have, is fairly close to being conquered at this point. They're really kind of on their last breath, and you can see now I'm about to take it over. Now, the fight with the Oumaji is not going nearly as well as I might have hoped, but I have finally now conquered the Bardur and gotten a giant, which means that I'm still not doing too badly, and I also have been able to make a little bit of movement forward in the Oumaji territory. Now, they do have a nice geographical advantage in that they can basically stop me from moving with a single unit, or maybe 2 units, and that's because of the fact that they have such a thin strip of land connecting them to our land, which makes it really easy for them to defend themselves, although the inverse of that is that it also makes it really easy for us to defend ourselves. I continue to work to get more farms as I can, and will eventually invest in a windmill to go near one of them, just to make sure that I've got enough points to solidify my first place. The Xin-xi will conquer that city. There's no way I was going to get rid of that giant that they had, certainly not within the limited number of turns I had left. So, despite looking around for a way to get rid of the giant, it was really kind of a lost cause. Now, I do have a couple of giants that I probably should have better utilized, and moved towards the Oumaji a little bit earlier, but I didn't, and that's, I guess, okay. Not the end of the world, certainly. And now I'm just going to spend a little bit of time. I do have the city that the Xin-xi conquered from us under siege now, but obviously we don't have any more turns left to take it back. So, oh well, I still got first place. Overall, I would call that probably my best game that I've played on the YouTube channel, as far as I can remember. There may have been, like, one that's relatively comparable, but that was a lot of fun. I did very well, and in just a second we can go over some of my failings and some of my advantages. Alright, so there were really 2 types of advantage that I had in this game. Number 1 was luck, and number 2 was strategy. Let's take a look at luck first, so that we can more easily talk about strategy. So, in terms of luck, really my 2 big things were having those 2 ruins right next to my capital, and also that it took us a few turns to encounter our fellow tribes. And I guess along with that one is the fact that we never really had to deal with an Oumaji invasion, because of the fact that they didn't have much of a land connection to us. And the same goes for the Xin-xi, the fact that we didn't have any land connection with them, so we never really ever had to deal with an invasion from them, other than towards the end of the game when they had powerful enough units and ships. But with those two out of the way, let's take a look now at some of the strategy that was involved in this game. So, firstly, we'll talk about the things that I did really well here. And I think that the first one was really investing everything I had into developing my capital, and obviously that was significantly helped by having those two ruins near it. But still, I think that was a very, very important move to make there, where instead of trying to invade other cities, I was able to invest in developing my capital and even getting a super unit before I had to deal with expanding the empire. And really, I guess, development was sort of a running theme in this one, in that I really basically got all of my points from developing cities as much as I reasonably could. But I think that was really one of the big things in the game, was that I really played into one thing, which was economic development, as opposed to trying to split my resources between fighting and economic development. And once I got to fighting, I had a powerful enough empire that I didn't really need to do a whole lot of investment into development to continue to expand easily. Now, let's take a look at something that I could have done significantly better on, and that was researching ships. Now, I'm glad that I didn't use any of my ship technology to try to fight the Xin-xi. I think that would have been a really bad move on my part, so I guess that does sort of go along with the last category in that I didn't really bother with fighting the Xin-xi too much. However, I could probably have had a significant improvement if I had simply decided that instead of trying to stay on land and do all of my fighting there, that I would get into the water. Because by the time I had started doing anything with the ocean, the Oumaji also had, and so they had me in kind of a stalemate, wherein I wasn't able to continue to fight them using that better technology, because they had me blocked from using it further, and likewise, I had them blocked from really using it to their fullest advantage as well. So that was probably one of the big things I could have done, is that I could have invested in ships earlier, and then I would have been able to assist my land invasion with a naval invasion of the Oumaji land, and possibly, although probably not conquered them, at least taken a significant chunk of their land. But all in all, I would say this was a really good game, obviously, considering that I got first place by the end of it. So I would not count this as too badly played of a game. I would consider this somewhat luck-based, as all games are, as well as somewhat skill-based, and I think this was definitely much more skill-based than the last game. So I'm certainly glad that I was smart about really trying to develop my capital before anything else. I think that was a good move for my particular tribe in this particular situation. So with all of that said, thank you so much for watching to this point in the video. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving it a like. That way I know you like this stuff, and YouTube knows that you like this stuff. Share it with other people you think might be interested. That way the channel and the video all get out to more people. Obviously this is a small channel right now, so it's otherwise kind of an uphill battle to gain subscribers. So if you want to help out with that, make it a little bit easier for the channel to grow, consider sharing it with your friends or family members who are interested in Polytopia. Other than that, you can subscribe to the channel so that I know that you're continuing to watch. I know that most of my views are coming from people who aren't subscribed, so maybe consider doing that. With notifications on, of course, because those will help you know that videos are coming out. YouTube doesn't just give you notifications, you need to click the button. And until next time, have a nice day.